What's going on? Welcome to the Shonee Jackson Show, episode 11. Like and subscribe, and follow me on the socials. Like I say every single time, all of that should be linked, and there's not very many Shonee Jacksons in the world, so Shonee Jackson, type it on any of the socials, you'll find me very quickly. That said, football is really back. Preseason games have been played. The Olympics are over. Going to talk about that towards the end. But of course, the bread and butters of this show, football, the Dallas Cowboys, the NFL. That's what we're going to get into. Going to talk about some preseason action, the game last night, Cowboys and Rams, takeaways from that, standouts, concerns, different things from the game, maybe dive into some of the other games. I think at this point, every team in the NFL has played a preseason game. Let's look at some of the rookie quarterbacks, talk about some of their stats briefly, whatever other standouts have been going on in the league. But let's get right into the discussion today. The Dallas Cowboys played a preseason game last night versus the Los Angeles Rams in Los Angeles. The game ended with no touchdowns until basically the very last play of the game. 13-12, a classic preseason game. Neither of the team's superstars played at all last night, but obviously you go and you watch for the depth of your team. Obviously, when you see rookies on both sides of the ball, who stands out, who's translating from their camp performances into games. You know how it goes. I really enjoyed it. Was glad to see the Cowboys back in action in an actual football game. You're getting to see more of the new kickoff and rule changes and what that looks like. So it's been a lot of fun. So let's get right into standouts and takeaways of the game last night. Let's start at the top. The most important player in this training camp, in my eyes, and the most important player for the Dallas Cowboys that needs to take another step and continue to improve, for me, is Mazi Smith. I think for everybody should honestly be Mazi Smith. I've been talking to my buddies a lot recently. Obviously, a lot of Cowboys fans. And I always, not jokingly, but say it in kind of a joking manner, where Mazi Smith being good away from winning a Super Bowl. The Cowboys are one of the best 5 rosters conservatively in the NFL, in my opinion. Offensively, we're going to be fine. We'll talk about the running game and some concerns on that end. And there's concerns with all 32 teams in the league on both sides of the football. And yet, we got an all-pro quarterback returning. We got weapons galore still. And I think we're going to have a very good offensive line when these rookies immediately transition into good football players, which I think both of them will. And not to mention the all-pros that we already have that exist on this team to go along with the right tackle as well. So at the end of the day, I don't have any concerns about the Cowboys offense, and I don't have any concerns really about the defense, except you get to a point in time when you're playing in the playoffs where you're going to have to be big, strong, and good in the trenches. The best defenses in the league are going to be there at that point in time. The best offenses and the best quarterbacks in running games are going to be in the playoffs once you get beyond the wild card round, especially. Right? And the Cowboys' kryptonite, if you want to erase the offensive side of the ball or any struggles we've had at quarterback in certain playoff games, it is the interior defensive line for going on about 15, 20 years now. Right, Mazi Smith was our first-round draft pick a year ago. Obviously very important. Obviously, the fan base has been disgruntled with him so far to date. He has struggled. He's struggled mentally and physically since being in the NFL, right? Did not have a great rookie year, and it's important to understand that he's transitioning into an entirely new system and really learning to be a new player. My takeaway is he played all right. He played good, in my opinion. He's playing hard. He's hustling, which should be a given, and yet I think it's all between the ears with this guy. Mazi Smith is big enough, strong enough, and explosive enough to be a very good NFL football player for as long as his body allows it. All right? It's between the ears of him believing that fully on his good days, on his bad days, on his great days, that he is that guy. And whatever it is off the field has to get dealt with as soon as possible, and I pray that it does, just for him not the football player, but him the person. And I think anybody logical or decent would say the same thing. But for the Dallas Cowboys and for my fucking mental health, I need him to get over some of that and be a good football player, just like all of us do. Yesterday, and I think throughout camp, he's showing signs of stepping into that. Is he going to step into being one of the best nose guards in the league in year 2? No, I don't think that that's really possible at this point. But what is possible is that he continues to improve every single day, show up better than you were the last day, show up and implement the things that you're being coached, whether it's technical or something else, one day to the next. I was proud of his effort last night, and I was proud of some of the plays that he made. Let's look at his stat line. I think he had 3 tackles. He made some stuffs. He made some plays in the run game. I saw him hustling and pursuing to the football and doing things that you just didn't see him do at all last year. Yes, he had 3 tackles. I don't have his snap count from last night, but he played a little bit. I would like to see him get more snaps, but you need to understand, one, we have to count on him this year. I believe we need to bring in another guy like Linval Joseph, and that's going to happen. You need to do that. But, you don't need to overwork him game 1 or risk potential injury game 1, giving him an ass load of snaps, because he does need the ass load of snaps, and yet there's not enough depth behind him to really do that right now. And I'll get to my concerns later. My biggest concern on this entire team is the depth on the defensive line. And so you don't really have the depth to overwork him in that situation, but I thought he played better. And like I said, just get better every single day if you're Mazi Smith. Take what you did in that Rams game, and in today's practice or tomorrow's practice, whenever they get back to training camp, improve on it. And do that every single day in practice. And that sounds so cliche, but that's the difference. This guy was a first-round draft pick. He was a first-round draft pick for a reason. What is going to determine him being an outrageous disappointment and bust or a good NFL football player for many years to come is going to come between the ears for Mazi Smith. I think anybody tapped into the organization, if you listen to the Brian Broadduses of the world, Bobby Belts, 105.3 The Fan, the people that you know aren't only at practice every single day, but get information inside the organization, they all say that same thing. And you could just see it. You could see it in his body language from a year ago, in some of the practice footage that you see. Sometimes he looks like a guy that doesn't love football. And if he doesn't love football, he's not going to be a good football player. It's too hard. The position he's playing is too hard. He's going to deal with weight issues. All kinds of things will come into play that'll ruin that. And yet, if he can flip the switch on that and turn the page, and if he does love football, and whatever that other stuff has to do with things that don't exist within football, then I think Mazi Smith's going to be a good football player. And he's developing, and he's being coached well. And for the Dallas Cowboys' sake, like I say, we're a good Mazi Smith away from probably contending for a Super Bowl this year. And if we don't get that, it could be the reason we don't do it again. Moving forward, Demarvion overshown. Made his first start since tearing his ACL a year ago and looked like the lightning bolt that he looked like before that. Listen, Demarvion, since coming out of high school, has had the ceiling to be a fucking superstar in this league. And I think he will achieve that, God willing, he stays healthy. He was on a snap count as he should have been yesterday. Demarvion's a starter in my eyes. Is he going to start? I'm not sure right away, but I think he's a right off the top. If he's healthy, we'll be getting starting snaps and production for the Dallas Cowboys, not only on defense, but even on special teams. Very fast and physical football player. You don't have to teach the physicality aspect of Demarvion Overshown. He's had it since he's been a child, I'm pretty sure. Since I started watching film on him when he was like a sophomore in high school, he's been a physical, thumping football player, all right? It was always interesting to see what position he would develop into. He's developed into an NFL linebacker when he was recruited to play safety at the University of Texas. One of the biggest reasons, and it has nothing to do with his athleticism and all the things that everybody obviously loves about the guy. One of the biggest reasons I'm so confident that Demarvion Overshown is going to be an excellent football player for the Dallas Cowboys is because I'm a massive Longhorns fan, and I've watched the guy go from a developmental project into what he is now, which is probably one of the most fan favorite players within the Cowboys fan base, of what you've seen in the preseason and practice clips of what people think the potential he can be. And that's like Pro Bowl potential, all pro level stuff. If you talk to any Cowboys fans or reporters around the organization, but it's because I've watched him go from that 3-star, lower 4-star level player, not sure what position he was going to be, had to put some weight on when he comes to college, deal with some injuries, deal with some adversity, and every single year show up at Texas and get better, to where he turned into the leader of the defense before he left, and arguably the best player on what was a pretty good defense when he left the University of Texas, right? So as a guy, I played football for more than 10 years. I've been around it my entire life. There's not many other hobbies I have other than watching football, talking about football, being around the game of football. That's the most important aspect to me. Bouncing off of talking about what Mazi Smith needs to do, I don't have to worry about that at all with Demarvion Overshown. If Demarvion Overshown, God willing, stays healthy, he will always improve from one offseason to the next, from one practice to the next, one game to the next. He comes from as humble beginnings as one could come from. Demarvion's dealt with more adversity as far as the deck of cards that were handed to him and his family from a fiscal perspective, a resourceful perspective. He played in an era of college football right before this NIL era where you can really get broken off and paid, and had to deal with a lot of adversity from stuff that was just completely and entirely outside of his control as a football player. I think it's been reported from the University of Texas that there were times in life that Demarvion thought he maybe needed to go home and step away from football based off of family stuff and resource stuff that his family did not have, right? So a guy like that makes it to this point in the NFL and is expected to be a key piece to a really good expected defense in the Dallas Cowboys for a franchise like the Dallas Cowboys before he's played a real NFL game, a regular season game. You know that in between the years, that guy is really, really solid. And then that's why you've seen him recover from an ACL injury that takes a long time and can really discourage a man, especially one that didn't play yet in the NFL and had such high expectations that were ripped away from him. That's a discouraging and frustrating thing to deal with. And he looks just as strong as he did when he left. He told a story, and I'm paraphrasing what he said, but during his offseason recovery, he would go out in the garage and just swat flies with a fly swatter all day to keep himself occupied and doing something, right? Again, humble beginnings. He comes from a very small town with very little growing up. That's a guy that understands how to get his mind in a right place, to just be happy with what he has, be incredibly opportunistic, and do the best with the cards you get dealt. He's been doing it his entire life. He's going to continue to do it, and that's why Demarvion Overshown is going to be a great Dallas Cowboy. He's going to be a great NFL linebacker. He's a great father, a great husband. He's going to raise great kids, and he's going to be very successful, whether it's for the Dallas Cowboys, whether it's for other teams, whether it's in a different profession. That's a guy that cannot fail as long as he's breathing on this earth. So I'm very excited to see Demarvion Overshown. Glad to have him back. Massive Longhorns fan, so hook him. And can't wait to see what he does for this Dallas Cowboys defense this year. Outside of that, the secondary had 5 interceptions. I was impressed with Eric Scott Jr. yesterday. He's a guy battling for a spot in a very loaded secondary with the Dallas Cowboys. I expect him to make the team. And you got guys like Kalen Carson, though, that have entered camp and become superstars before they even played a game. Kalen Carson had 6 tackles yesterday. He got beat on a few plays, but I think he's still going to be a stud. That was his first NFL game. I think he's going to start for this team, whether it's week 1 or it happens throughout the season. He works his way into the starting role. Like Mike Zimmer said, like I've said before, I think this kind of guy that's going to be an all-pro, a guy we drafted in the 5th round that's an absolute still. Our rivals over there in Philadelphia suck ass in the secondary and were absolutely Swiss cheese a year ago. They drafted 2 players before Kalen Carson that I don't think is going to be as good as Kalen Carson. So Eric Scott's battling against that type of shit. He played good, solid yesterday. Every time I saw him in coverage, he seemed to be in a good spot. I think he gave up a catch or 2 as well, but he recovered well. He made the tackles, and he got an interception. Eric Scott, Brock Morganson, Julius Wood, and Marquise Bell got interceptions yesterday. Marquise Bell looked really fucking good in his natural spot of safety, right? Obviously, we had injuries and stuff last year, but Dan Quinn did a poor job of building linebacker depth in the 3 years that he was here in Dallas. So when we hit the injury bug a year ago, we were playing safeties and underside players at the linebacker position, and it killed us. By the end of the season, Marquise Bell was a liability, not because he's not a good football player. He was a liability because he was out of position, and we didn't have the interior defensive lineman to keep him clean to play an undersized guy there, right? So that sucked, but yesterday he had 9 total tackles, 6 solo, and an interception. He was a guy that seemed to be in the right spot every single time. Stetson Bennett was a bag of ass and threw a lot of interceptions that were his fault, right? Overthrowing receivers, just making bad throws, not seeing safeties and linebackers. But let me tell you something. I played defensive back my entire life. I love the defensive back position a lot. I watch that more than I watch any position on the field, analyzing guys, being fans of guys, this, that, and the other. 95% of your interceptions are from you being a guy that is consistently in the right spot more often than not, right? Players from the high school level to the pro level that take the ball away from the offense are cerebral guys that know where to be and when to be there. Point blank, period. Because they're not throwing you the football on offense. Obviously, right? But they're running routes that you don't know they're running. So the faster you disguise route combinations and get in the place that you need to be, pass guys off, pick up guys in zone coverage, do what you're supposed to do, the better things are going to work out for you. And karma and football karma works that way anyways. So Marquise Bell exemplified that last night. He was always in the right spot, and he's a very physical football player. He's going to put his pads on you and thump your ass. I think our starting safeties are going to be obviously Malik Hooker. That spot is locked down. Nobody's taking that spot from him, barring injury. And then Donovan Wilson, more likely than not. The kamikaze and Donovan Wilson. So Malik Hooker is going to play the free, and he's going to do a great job in doing so. What Mike Zimmer needs is another guy that is also very good and reliable in coverage that comes down and puts them pads on you. Donovan Wilson, you can count on him doing that, and yet he hasn't played a full season in the NFL yet. So, I don't want Donovan Wilson to miss any games. I love Donovan Wilson. He's one of my favorite players on the Dallas Cowboys. And yet you can't count on him being there for all 17 games in that position in the way he plays it. He plays it like a kamikaze, like a suicide bomber. And that's one of the reasons I love him so much. But if he gets hurt, you can rely on guys like Marquise Bell to step in and not drop off at all. Wanye Thomas had 3 tackles, 2 solo. So we played really good in the secondary. Really young, talented, if not the best secondary in the league. We didn't even see really any of our starters get 5 interceptions. I understand we're playing their backups as well. 5 interceptions is 5 interceptions. Or no, we got 4 interceptions. Sorry, 4 interceptions. It could have been about 7 or 8 interceptions, to tell you the truth. But we played very well. Let's move on to the other side of the football. Tyler Guyton's ready to go. Chuma Edoga got hurt. Hopefully it's not too long term because you still need him on this roster. I think he could miss some times with it, but that's a guy that's always hurt. I'm not trying to shit on the guy, but, some people want to be on the field more than others. Chuma's going to make this very easy, if he hasn't already made it very easy in a lot of our eyes, for Tyler Guyton to take that role, and I think it's over now. When Tyler Guyton was not on the field, Trey Lance was running for his life. When Tyler Guyton was on the field, Trey Lance had plenty of time to throw the football. You know what I'm saying? Tyler Guyton's ready to go, and honestly, wherever he is raw in his game, he just needs to be playing to work that out. And the opposite of Mazi Smith, our first-round pick a year ago, and I talked about the mental issues, I don't think this guy deals with that at all. You're talking about a dude that was recruited to play defensive tackle in college, and he became a first-round left tackle selection when he played right tackle in college as well. So, obviously, he's a dude that seizes the potential of his athleticism very, very quickly, and it translates and you can trust him. He's a guy that went from the Senior Bowl to today, I think has improved a lot because he attacked that with Duke Merriweather and his training in the offseason. He attacks what he needs to do good at. What he needs to improve on. He seems to be a dude that understands the criticism that he receives. He can look back on games, whether that be in film study, whether that be coaches talking to him, and understand where there's room for improvement. And you see it very quickly with a guy like Tyler Guyton. And like Lane Johnson said when he entered the league, he gave it an analysis on him. And obviously Lane Johnson went to Oklahoma and watched him a lot. He called him a freakazoid. And basically said it's going to be impossible for this dude to not be a stud in this league, barring anything off the field, right? Guys that are as tall as him, that move as fluidly as him, just can't fail if they put their minds to it. And it seems like the Cowboys drafted one that, is solid on the mental side and the physical side, obviously, and he's going to be a very good left tackle for a long time. And we don't miss on offensive linemen. Point blank period. The Dallas Cowboys. And I might close the show and talk about this a little bit. If you follow me on the socials, which you should be if you're watching these, I gave my thoughts on the CeeDee Lamb situation the other day, and I come across differently than most do on our front office and just don't think that they operate as poorly or as incompetent as the national media and even Cowboys media oftentimes suggest that they do. And one area that they don't operate poorly at all is clearly through the NFL draft and in positions that are very, very important to winning a lot of games, like the offensive line and in the secondary. All we do is draft studs along the offensive line and in the secondary. And it looks like we just got 2 more in Tyler Guyton and Cooper Beebe. I refuse to think Cooper Beebe's not going to be an all-pro at some point in this league. He is just a fucking mountain of a man. His body is a muscle. He moves too good. He's too good at blocking and stopping defensive linemen from getting by him, around him, or through him to not be good. The snapping issue, didn't have any last night from what I saw. That's just going to improve. Just snap the ball to the quarterback. Do it thousands of times, and eventually you'll be better at it. I think with both of our rookie offensive linemen, it's just time to throw them into the fire. That's what we drafted them to do, and they are too important to this team. And the element of this team getting over the hump that we haven't gotten over relies just as much on them as it does on Mazi Smith on the other side of the ball. It's time to give those two guys the Mazi Smith treatment of now or never, right? Like Mazi Smith, if he doesn't realize it, and the people that are involved in his life don't realize that this is the most important 6 months of his football career and overall probably his life, because it's going to be the difference in making millions and millions of dollars to play this game for a while or needing to find a different career to go into here in a few years because this one will end, right? I don't really worry that that's ever going to happen with Tyler Guyton or Cooper Beebe at all. They've already shown enough through a few weeks of practice in my eyes to see that they're going to seize their potential. Again, knock on wood, they stay healthy enough to do that. I don't see that at all. So why not just give them that same fucking treatment and throw them to the Wolves? Start them in practice. Start them in every game. We don't need to see Chuma start. We know what Chuma is as a starter. We know what he is as a backup. Let him get healthy. Keep that guy on ice in case we ever need him. God forbid that we do at any point during the season. He can fill in and be serviceable enough. Throwing him to the Wolves right now, he's just going to keep getting hurt. Chuma's not good enough. He's not a starter in this league, and he's not as good as Tyler Guyton. Just play him. Play Cooper Beebe. I like Brock Hoffman as well. Good guy. Great podcast. Go check it out. Go listen to it. But he's not Cooper Beebe either as an offensive lineman, right? And Cooper Beebe could start at guard, but we got the two best guards in the NFL, so that ain't happening. So let's throw those guys to the Wolves. I thought they both played good. I thought the offensive line had its ups and downs, but we don't have our starters in there, and you can expect that. But the guys that we needed to play really well played really well. Tyler Guyton looked very good. Looks like that's a guy that you're going to throw in there, and we just went from Tyron Smith to another guy for the next decade that's going to keep that quarterback clean. Don't got to worry about it. Blind side's protected. The Cowboys do a very good job of drafting the elite of the elite on the offensive line and in the secondary. And when you do that, you win a lot of games, which is why I described on my last show that the Cowboys have won more in the last 10 years, 5 years, 3 years than every single team in our division and most teams in the NFL, right? And they do that because they draft really well at the most important positions on the field. Let's move on to the receivers, all right? One of the biggest discussions is who is going to get that 5th or 6th receiver spot, who's going to be the last receiver in the room to make the roster, and I think it's really, truly coming down to a battle between Ryan Flornoy and Jalen Cropper. Give me Cropper. Give me Cropper. Flornoy is a guy that has a ton of athleticism and upside, but there's thousands of him. And I'm honestly at the point, and I hope he changes this. He has a few weeks to do it. But I'm at the point with guys like Flornoy, where people that cover this team, whether they just have a social media account that covers the team or they create content like I'm trying to do, that they pick players like this on the Cowboys every few years, and it's usually at a flash position like receiver. And receiver is a position where anybody that has a middle school mindset or just looks at flash and style and probably didn't really play beyond a serious level. And I'm not trying to belittle or do that thing. That's not what I'm here to do. It's just a position that's flashy that gets people drawn to it. And Flornoy is a guy from Southeast Missouri, I think he went to, that he's going to show flashes of that in practice and his college tape or whatever, where you're going to be in awe of this type of guy maybe. You know what I'm saying? And so there's people that like him so much, but he doesn't, one, stay on the field enough, and two, make plays consistently enough to do that for me. And in my opinion, receivers fall off of trees, all right? Every skill player in the world, and there's thousands and thousands of them from the middle school level up, are trying to play receiver now. You know, running back position has been dying over the last decade. The receiver position's being uplifted. The game has shifted that way with the play calling and the offensive design and schematics to go along with the rules favoring receivers so much in today's game, and quarterbacks as well. So it's just a popular position amongst fans in general, and Flornoy's a guy that has just become super popular within the Cowboys fan base and people that cover the team. He just hasn't done enough. And since Jalen Cropper has stepped on, and gotten in training camp and been a part of the organization this year. All he has done is make plays and score touchdowns in practice, and he made more plays than Flornoy did in the game yesterday. Did he have moments where he could have done better? Sure. But Flornoy made drops and just wasn't making the plays to be there, and quite frankly, let Trey Lance down at moments in the games. There were drives where Trey Lance was dialed, it seemed like, making plays, and that's where Flornoy had that drop. You know, if you don't start making plays now, I just think it's the guy like Jalen Cropper that is making the plays that doesn't only deserve to make the team, but I trust more to make the team. At this point in time, when you're talking about the last spots on the roster or the last spot in the receiving room, at that point, you're only going to have a handful of plays throughout the season. So reliability and consistency is what's going to win or lose with me if I'm making that decision. And Jalen Cropper, from camp day one to now, isn't only on the field more and healthier more than Ryan Flornoy is, but he's more consistent and reliable when he is. Therefore, I think right now, if the preseason ended today, that decision is very easy. Move on from Flornoy. You're going to get another one of him or 5 of them next year in the draft and being undrafted when they come join camp. Receivers just run around and catch the ball, guys. It ain't that hard. Run around, catch the ball. From a practice perspective, they have it easier than anybody else does. You know? So Flornoy, unless he turns the page and starts to seize the potential that so many want to talk about, he's playing his way off of this team, and a guy like Jalen Cropper is playing his way onto this team. Because if it comes down to it, and these guys sub on through somebody getting a boo-boo, spraining their ankle, stubbing a toe, you got to come on, make a play. I trust Jalen Cropper more than I trust Flornoy right now. Right? And last, but certainly not least, Trey Lance. I was very happy with Trey Lance's performance last night. You know, it's very nitpicky amongst the fan base because this has become a thing of you either hate or love Dak Prescott. If you love him, you got to hate Trey Lance. If you hate him, you got to love Trey Lance too much and hope he pushes Dak Prescott out. It is time right here and right now, if you want to be realistic and logical and objective, and you're just rooting for the Dallas Cowboys to get Lombardi number 6, which I've said many times that's what the SJ show is for more than anything, Lombardi number 6, then throw that bullshit high school stuff out of the window. I'm over that. Trey Lance is 24 years old. No one else is 24 years old? Michael Penix and Bo Nix. Let's treat those guys and hold them to the fire the same way we are Trey Lance. Because Trey Lance is a raw football player that just played his first game in 2 years last night. All right? And he had his ups and his downs in the game, but he took care of the football. The quarterback on the other side threw 4 interceptions and had a 48.5 QB rating. Trey Lance had a 72 QB rating. All right? Was astronomically better than the quarterback on the other side of the field. Okay? And like I said, this is his first game at all in 2 years. And that's what it looks like. He was hit and miss at times. He missed a touchdown in the game. That's a routine throw for an NFL quarterback. Is that unfortunate? Yes, but that isn't surprising at all to me. I'm going to pull it up for you. Let me just pull it up. It isn't surprising at all for me for a guy that hasn't played a game in 2 years. Here's the play. You get man coverage down here. This is a route in the end zone that's pretty much impossible to cover. They didn't bracket the receiver, so they didn't pass him off. And it's an easy run by this cornerback, run the corner route in the end zone. He's completely out leveraged. Unless he just sits on the corner route, he's not covering it. Trey Lance right here kind of just waits too long. You need to throw it right now. He takes a drop step and a pat. You don't have time for a drop step and a pat. You get the coverage you want. You're not running it on 4th and 1. Box is loaded. You got man coverage. Safety's in the box. They double the guy that runs the slant, basically. And, you got the corner route wide open. You got to know that before the ball snapped. I think he did. He just waits too long. Receiver Jalen Cropper, who I was just talking about, runs out of space. Right? Should have been an easy touchdown. It wasn't, but the important part for Trey Lance isn't hitting that in his first game in 2 years because Trey Lance isn't playing to start and beat out Dak Prescott. He's playing to be the second quarterback on the roster, and whatever the Cowboys do beyond that will be the organization's prerogative and decision. Okay? But he's 24 years old with the upside through the roof. What was his stat line? 25 for 41, 188 passing yards, and I want to say he had about 40 rushing yards or so. Rushing. Yeah, 6 carries for 44 rushing yards. Very fast, very athletic, and that'll help the mechanical issues that he's behind on as a quarterback, right? His footwork is still sloppy and happy, right? He releases the ball from his hip, has too much of a drawn-out release, which affects his accuracy and getting the ball out quick enough, right? There's a few things, I'm not a QB coach. Watch the QB School and other YouTube guys that do that. There's plenty of QB gurus out there that I'm sure will break down the film of Trey Lance, and you can talk about the mechanics and worry about that there. That's going to continue to develop. His arm strength, speed, and athleticism will mask some of that if he does have to play. Trey Lance looked like a guy yesterday from practice 1 to practice now that seems to improve every single day. When you hear him talk, he seems like he's matured a lot from the guy you saw in the strip club in his rookie year in San Francisco. You know what I'm saying? And every single day he acknowledges when he does an interview, seems that he acknowledges the issues that he had, whether it be in practice or this game. I believe, let me see, I had a quote pulled up. Let me see if I can find it. Trey Lance, on his first game with the Dallas Cowboys, he said, "I think I left some plays out there for sure across the board from the first quarter to the fourth. It was fun. I learned a ton from it. I'll learn a ton from the tape, but I want to score touchdowns for sure." So he's acknowledging, I made some plays and I left a lot of meat on the bone. You know, we drove the ball down the field sometimes very well on certain drives. We got all the way to the red zone inside the 10-yard line, and we left meat on the bone. We didn't score touchdowns. That's why we lost the game. They scored a touchdown. We did not score a touchdown. That's the difference in the win and loss for Trey Lance and the Rams yesterday. You know, he seems to acknowledge that. He seems to understand that. Now, from game 1 to game 2, does Trey Lance throw touchdowns? Does he continue to hold on to the ball? Does that completion percentage go up? Does his timing on certain routes and certain plays get better? Does he get it out quicker the next time we're in the red zone and you got the exact coverage you want? You're in there. You get your play call is going to work. You don't need to check to a run. You don't need to do anything else. We got him out leveraged. The DBs don't bracket and pass off the receivers. Easy money. Bam, get the snap. Drop it off, put it in the breadbasket, touchdown, that's 6. That's just the difference in timing and playing a lot of football. Trey Lance coming out of college didn't play a lot of football. That was why he was raw. It is not Trey Lance's fault that Kyle Shanahan made an irrational decision to try to land the next Patrick Mahomes and trade up for Trey Lance and give up too much for a guy that wasn't ready to play in the NFL yet. Everybody in the world knew Trey Lance was raw. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch decided to trade up for him. That's not his fault, okay? We traded for him not to come take Dak Prescott's job. Maybe that was on the back burner of a possibility. I would like to keep Trey Lance. I would like to re-sign Trey Lance. That's a possibility without him being the starter of your football team. There's not a lot of people out there, if anybody, that's going to give him starter money when he hasn't shown the ability to do that. But what he has shown me so far is he's improving with Dallas. Unlike when he was in San Francisco, and he's got an all-pro quarterback to sit behind and learn from for an entire year if we do decide to move forward with Trey Lance. And I also think that if he continues to improve, which I believe he will throughout this preseason, and it comes down to him and Cooper, they might keep 3 guys. Who knows if they don't keep 3 quarterbacks and they cut a different position. But if it comes down to him and Cooper, if he improves from last night and keeps doing so, then I'm keeping him. He's 24 years old. He's the age of 2 first-round quarterbacks that got drafted this year, and he's going into year 4. He seems to get it in between the ears. He seems to understand the urgency and his development and how he cannot have any backsliding or backsteps, and his ceiling is absolutely through the roof. So I don't understand why this has been a line in the sand of Trey Lance or Dak Prescott. If you're doing that and you are watching him and analyzing him based off of your desire for him not to ever become better than Dak Prescott or to prove a point to other fans that just hate Dak Prescott, then you need to grow the fuck up and watch for different reasons, or start creating content in a different manner than what you're trying to say that you're doing. And you know who you are out there that do this. You know what I'm saying? Just watch him for the development of Trey Lance and stop watching him to compare him to Dak Prescott. Because Dak Prescott at 24 years old still had a lot of things to improve on as well. And I think Trey Lance, if you implement him on this roster with the starters, with the starting game plan to attack defenses, he's going to have success and can win a lot of games for the Dallas Cowboys. As many as Dak? Fuck no. Dak was an all-pro a year ago. Let's remove that and just be logical and objective about the development of Trey Lance, and it's going good. Trey Lance did fine last night. Let's see him improve from game 1 to game 2, from game 2 to game 3, from week 1 of practice to week 2, and so on and so forth, right? Stop looking at it from the goggles of, I want to prove a point about Dak Prescott, whether that's on the side of being pro, sign Dak and give him $1 billion, or that's on the side of, I want to move on from Dak Prescott, so I'm being overly bullish and pipe dreamy about Trey Lance. No, watch it objectively, find the balance in the middle, and just watch it for what it's supposed to be watched for. Enjoy this game, and let's think organization-based and what's best for the organization. It's best for the organization that Trey Lance continues to develop and become a good quarterback. Whether that's being the future franchise quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, whether that's just the backup quarterback in 2024, or whether that allows us the ability to trade him this season, get some more draft capital, maybe interior defensive line help, or anything to improve the roster. Right? Regardless of any of that happens, you rooting against Trey Lance is stupid as shit if you're a Cowboys fan. Dumb as shit, and I think you're dumb if you root against Trey Lance. I think you're a dumb person. That's what I think. Let's talk about some concerns and some LA Rams stuff. Let's start with the concerns because we're already on the Dallas Cowboys. D-line depth is a major concern. Even though, what's his name, Georgia boy, Stetson Bennett threw 15 interceptions last night, he had all day long to throw the football. I mean, we got no pressure. Our backups versus their backups. Now, Marcus Nealon's ready to go for what he is. All right, he's a ceiling DeMarcus Lawrence in my eyes, but he's already going to be a certified good run defending defensive end for the Dallas Cowboys, and that's what Mike Zimmer and Greg Ellis drafted him to do. All right, he's going to be of the Mike Zimmer mold of a strong side defensive end. You gave him the number 94. I think he's going to be a stud in this league. Year one, is he going to get 10 sacks? Absolutely not. One, he's not going to play enough to do that. Maybe he will, but he's not ready as a pass rusher to be a 10-sack guy. But he's going to be a strong side defensive end that stops the run. Outside of that, the depth is concerning. Obviously, the interior, we don't even know if we have a good starter yet. Oso Odighizuwa is a beast. Well, 3 tech, that's solidified for this year, and this year alone, we're probably going to lose him. But at the 1 tech, the nose position, we don't even know if we got one, really, let alone depth there. And at the pass rush depth, it's just not there. We don't have it. Sam Williams' injury, you saw the lingering effect of that yesterday. At the very top, we have 2 of the best pass rushers in the entire NFL. They're going to torture teams. But beyond that, I'm concerned about the depth on the defensive line. And then obviously running backs. Rico Dowdle, 3 carries for 14 yards, 4.7 a carry. He's very good. He's our best running back. Very good, might be a stretch, but he's our best running back. Zeke didn't play. You see a lot of kickback from that. Hey, shut the hell up, you ungrateful twats. Keep Zeke on ice. Zeke is on the roster. Zeke is fine. As I've said before, as I'll say today, there's never, ever, 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 ever going to be Zeke slander on the SJ show. You guys have no gratitude. It's not Zeke's fault that Jason Garrett gave him 4 million carries in 3 years in the NFL and tried to run him into the ground. And yet, Zeke's going to contribute to this football team and be a very important contribution to this football team. And some of you need to get a fucking clue on how durable you got to be to play the running back position. Prior to letting go of Zeke a year ago and moving on to Tony Pollard, I tried to beat it through the brains of Cowboys fans that Tony Pollard is not built to be a starting running back in the NFL. He wasn't yesterday. He's not today. I don't care that he had a 15-yard gain that everybody overreacted to in the preseason a few days ago. He's not built to get the workload of a starting running back in this league, and he refuses to fucking block anybody. All right? Rico Dowdle, I don't think is scared to block anybody, and I think he's built to take more than Tony is, and yet I don't know that you can count on him being healthy for 17 seasons, being the bell cow number 1 running back. This is still going to be situational running back shit in Dallas, and Mike McCarthy's done that most of his career anyways. First and foremost, we're not going to run the ball like Steve Sarkisian does. We're going to run it 40-45% of the time. We need running backs to contribute when it's time to contribute in situational settings, whether that be receiving back, whether that be a power back, whether that be pass blocking situations. Zeke is going to contribute to this football team, and we're going to need him. Regardless of what he's doing, though, I am not standing for Ezekiel Elliott slander. Kiss my ass with that. All day long. 2-1-15 all day long, Zeke. Be grateful for what Zeke did to this franchise. He just gave his soul and his body. The guy's probably going to be in a wheelchair before he's 50 years old because he loved running the rock for the Cowboys so much. Kiss my ass with Zeke slander. He's probably not as good of a pass blocker as he once was. He once was the best in the league at it. He's probably not as good as he was at that, but I bet he'll chip the fuck out of Myles Garrett week 1. I bet he'll do that. He's going to chip Myles Garrett's ass. week 1. Right, what else was it? But, obviously there's running back concerns. There has been the entire time. Can Rico Dowdle stay healthy? Will he be truly good? But at the end of the day, if that offensive line ends up hitting its stride the way I think it's going to, we're going to block so well that our running game's going to be just fine. So those are really my concerns out of week 1. This team's very good. There's not a lot to be concerned about. The Rams, on the other hand, Jordan Whittington. Shout out to Jordan Whittington, former Longhorn. Great fucking football player. Listen, he's one of the steals of the draft, in my opinion. He had 6 receptions, 74 yards, 12.3 reception, and a 30-yard long on 9 targets. Right out the top, force-fed. Looks like what Puka Nacua looked like a year ago. I think Jordan Whittington's going to start for the LA Rams. I think he's going to be a future perennial Pro Bowler in this league. Listen, look at guys like Deebo Samuel and of the mold of Jordan Whittington. After the catch, he's going to be one of the hardest receivers to deal with in the league. He has a running back build to him. He could have played running back in this league. He could have played safety in this league. He was the number 1 athlete in the country out of Cuero. All right? He had to deal with a lot of adversity at the University of Texas, and he dealt with it. Remember what I said about Demarvion overshown? Just insert Jordan Whittington and everything I said about him. He had some injuries that just wouldn't go away. He came on with expectations through the ceiling at Texas. He was a 5-star, was basically going to take over the starting running back role as a true freshman. He dealt with like sports hernia, hamstring, hip ligament injuries throughout the first 2.5 years of his career at Texas, and it was discouraging, and he just couldn't get on the field. There was points in the last few seasons where Jordan Whittington almost walked away from football because of health, and now I think he's going to be one of the best receivers in the NFL. Sean McVay doesn't miss on these guys, does he? He knows how to evaluate the receivers. And I know what I just said. I said one of the best receivers in the NFL. I think Jordan Whittington's ceiling is top 10, potentially higher than that. In that system that he's playing in, with the right coach that understands how to utilize him, listen, Sean McVay and Steve Sarkisian are very close. Their systems are very, very similar. Sean McVay doesn't fuck around and draft a guy that's just not going to work out what he wants to do. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to do it. Even going down the list on a guy that might not make the team, and Drake Stoops, same type of player. He drafts these receivers that can get a volume of catches, that are cerebral, and can be good after the catch. Drake Stoops ain't no Jordan Whittington in any element of the game, but he's a guy that you can count on, be reliable, make the tough catches, absorb contact, get back up, do it again, right? Jordan's going to absorb contact and deliver punishment as he's doing so. He's a true low 4.4 guy. People don't understand that. He's a true low 4.4, so he can run, and he's very hard to bring to the ground. He's going to run good routes. He's going to improve on that as he goes on in his NFL career. And like I said, that Deebo Samuel mold of running back / receiver, you can do so much with him. He can return kicks. He can run the ball out of the backfield. He's going to take a lot of crossing routes, mesh concepts, jet sweeps, screen action, longer crossing routes over the middle of the field, deep mesh concepts. That's Jordan Whittington all day long. He's going to handle it. He's going to do the dirty work. He's going to block your ass off. He's going to block your ass off. He's going to pancake you into the ground if you want to fuck around with Jordan Whittington. If you come with some pussy stuff with Jordan Whittington, he's going to bust your ass. Look up Jordan Whittington's state championship game. It's one of the best games I've ever seen a high school football player play. From the first kickoff to the last, he never came off of the field. He dominated and single-handedly won that state championship for Cuero. One of the best games you'll ever see from a football player in your lifetime. I can say that with confidence. That's the type of guy the Rams got. And I say all that to say he's an even better teammate, better guy. Ask anybody that knows him. He's an even better teammate. Read his Players Tribune article that he wrote a year ago. Get some insight on his mindset, how he tries to train that mind to be where it's at. He's been through a lot of adversity, dealt with a lot of perseverance, and guys like him and Demarvion overshown, I'm so happy to see that they are ready to catapult into the NFL superstars that they deserve to be, and multi-millionaires in their future, God willing they stay healthy. But regardless, Jordan Whittington's going to be successful anyhow. So that's awesome. And the last thing, dude, gratitude is oftentimes the key to opening the door to the dreams of your life. I'm a guy that stands on that. I approach what I'm doing here just grateful to be able to do it. I haven't been paid yet. I don't have any sponsors. I'm working towards that. I believe I'm going to accomplish that, right? I think that everybody in general in life, and when I got into this, I did it because I'm one, obviously very, very passionate about sports. It's the only thing I've really, outside of God, Jesus, family, that I've been really truly so passionate about that I don't sleep at night thinking about it. I'm going to talk about it all day regardless. It used to distract me from work when I was in the corporate world. It used to distract me from school when I was growing up, distract me from doing my homework, from anything else in the world. It's the one thing that I can't ever stop thinking about. And I think in general, everybody in the world has something that they're passionate enough about and have a gift, like, for instance, a natural gift of speaking and articulating your thoughts in a manner that's enjoyable to consume, which I believe I have that ability to do so, which is why I'm doing it. I believe everybody has some type of passion and talent to do that instead of whatever it is that they're doing and depend on for security or whatever it is in the world, right? Jordan Whittington is a dude that amplifies that. He never quit, even though there was times it seems maybe those around him or maybe he looked around and it seemed to make sense to quit right now and do something else. He didn't. He stuck to it, and now he's realizing his strengths. That sounds really cliche, and I'm not trying to be a motivational speaker, and yet oftentimes the beginning to accessing any of that and even the wherewithal and knowledge to know that you're good enough to pursue and chase something like being an NFL wide receiver when the odds are stacked against you and you've had 4 or 5 different surgeries in 3 or 4 years, and you got all these other good players coming into UT that are younger than you trying to pass you up, this, that, and the other. That can translate into and manifest in any way in our lives, right? The key to opening the door to access that a lot of times is just gratitude for the opportunity you already have and gratitude for the opportunity to recover from an injury and get to play again, or the chance to just be a scholarship player somewhere, even if it's not in the Power Four or whatnot. If you're not grateful like Jordan Whittington was when he had knee braces on or whatever it was and was being rolled around in a wheelchair trying to recover from an injury. I don't know. I don't know the story. I don't know the discouragement that he went through on the deep levels that he probably does. But if you can't be grateful in that, you can't be grateful enough to receive anything that's worth the level of accomplishing our dreams, right? So Jordan Whittington, Demarvion, overshown. I want to point guys out like that because they exemplify being opportunistic, grateful, and taking advantage of opportunities given to you despite adversity and the perseverance you got to deal with to obtain those things and accomplish them. So shout out to him for that, man. And then lastly, Sean McVay, man, he's going to go straight into the booth once Stafford retires, don't you think? You know, obviously he already had a massive opportunity, I think, from Fox a few years ago, and he leveraged it for more money from the Rams, which is what happens. But you know, he's a guy that for a long time you could tell would be excellent in the booth as an announcer, whether that's play-by-play commentary or color commentary type stuff, or he's on a pregame show, or he could do his own podcast or anything. He's got an electric personality, charisma out the ass, and knows way more about football than 99.9999999% of the world can ever forget or learn about. He's forgot more about football than anybody else can ever learn about football, right? There's not 5 people in the world that know more about football than Sean McVay does. So you add that with charisma and being articulate like he is, he would be great for the booth. They interviewed him during the game, like a live interview like they do in baseball and shit like that, where he's talking back and forth to the play-by-play commentary guys while the game's going on, and it was just electric and fun to watch. He crushed it, and he knew what he was doing the whole time, right? He knew exactly what he was doing, but I thought that was interesting to look at as soon as Stafford's out of there. I mean, he's traded every draft pick that the Rams have for the next 25 seasons, basically, to get that Super Bowl that they got. When Stafford goes, they're going to have some issues keeping that roster together. I don't know what they're going to do because they just don't have any fucking draft picks, right? I'm sure we're creeping up on them getting some of those back, but he's not here for the long run. He's a superstar. I think that the way he coaches, as much of a prodigy as he is, if you're going to accomplish the things that Sean McVay has accomplished, like being a Super Bowl champion, NFL Coach of the Year at such a young age like he has, then you probably work on an exhausting level. And all of these coaches exhaust themselves in their work, but he's a very talented guy, so he probably doesn't want to do that forever. He's young, he's freshly married, I think he's got young kids now. It's not, it's probably not something that he wants to do for the rest of the time. So I just kind of predict that as soon as Stafford's out, McVay's out of there, right? And yet, I think the Cowboys should throw that guy $20 million a year, but that's nothing but a pipe dream. I think they should give him so much money that he can't refuse to coach the Dallas Cowboys because he's probably the best coach in the NFL, in my opinion. But he's going to be excellent in the booth once he leaves, and it showed that the other night. That was fun to watch, and that's basically my takeaway from Week 1 of preseason for the Dallas Cowboys. Let me see if I can pull up a couple box scores of other players. Drake May, that game was interesting. It seems like the Patriots fan base decided that since Malik Hooker or not Malik Hooker, let's see, who was the guy who did they take, the kid from Tennessee? Joe Milton. Since Joe Milton was a 6th-round draft pick, like Tom Brady was a 6th-round draft pick, and obviously he's had a good training camp because Joe Milton has this cannon arm, and that's what he does, that he should start over the guy that they drafted like 3rd overall. That's insane. Drake May went 2 for 3, 19 yards, barely played, and then the Patriots did an awful job of toning down this Joe Milton shit by like playing Joe Milton way more than Drake May. But Joe Milton went 4 for 6 for 54 yards. Not a complete world beater. 134.7 QB rating, so he played really well. He ran around a little bit. This, that, and the other. Look at the difference in Joe Milton's signing bonus and Drake May's and tell me you're not a dumbass if you think Joe Milton's going to start instead of Drake May. Give it a rest, all right? And stop comparing motherfuckers to Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time, the greatest football player of all time, and the anomaly of all anomalies. All right? Joe Milton getting drafted in the 6th round like Tom Brady, blah, 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 blah. We saw Joe Milton play college football for like 4 years now. All right? Joe Milton, sorry if I'm remiss in saying this, I think I will chop off my pinky if Joe Milton comes in and makes a Pro Bowl as a rookie quarterback this year. I've seen enough of Joe Milton to understand what Joe Milton's going to be when defenses are game planning to stop Joe Milton. All right? I know that he can throw an orange out of a stadium, and that's pretty badass. I'm not going to front and act like that's not badass that he can throw a clementine out of a college football stadium. That's fucking sick. But he can't play the quarterback at an elite position at an elite level in this league. I don't think so. And not right now. If he does, not right now, not this year. Guys drafted a quarterback in the top 5 of the NFL draft. You're not playing your 6th-round quarterback. What a stupid-ass entitled fan base. That fan base never deserved to win shit in football. They win in everything else, blue blood franchises and everything else. Tom Brady has made these dumbasses in the Connecticut, Northeast, Massachusetts area that don't play football because it's so cold up there and there's no athletes. This is what we get because they went and won 6 Super Bowls. This is what we get. We get takes like this and Northeastern football takes, quarterback opinions, right? And I'm not saying Joe Milton won't one day be better than Drake May. I'm not even high on Drake May. But get a clue on how this shit works. Joe Milton is not starting this year for the Patriots unless Drake May plays his way out of that role. But it's so insane to be rooting against the quarterback that you drafted with the 3rd overall pick in the draft for a guy you drafted in the 6th round before they've even played a game. And Drake May didn't even do anything bad in the game that they've played. All right, moving on. Who else played? Michael Penix. Michael Penix was 9 for 16 for 104 yards. You know, all the rookies, they played solid. Nobody played. The key here is not playing so bad that that's what we're talking about, right? Look, I was talking about Trey Lance. I know he's not a rookie, but when you're developing and you're a guy that's in that development, it's just don't give the ball away and improve one game to the next. So a lot of that early on, and then the kickoff's interesting. Here's the thing. The Cowboys almost broke one at the end to win the game, and I'm sure that's happened around the league. When these elite returners actually start returning, like Turpin and others in the NFL, these guys are just going to kick it through the end zone every time. That's why I had to take early on that everybody was like, no, this is going to be cool and fun. Like, look, the returners are going to have a better chance now. No, they're not, because coaches are going to say, fuck that noise, kick it through the end zone. I don't want to try to stop Kevontae Turpin, who runs as fast as lightning, in these new kickoff rules. Kick it through the end zone. Oh, that's Xavier Worthy, make you miss and gone? Kick it through the end zone. That's what's going to happen. They just removed the kickoff from the game. Let me tell you something. I'm all about health just as much as the next guy. Have we ever stopped to just say this game wasn't designed to be safe? Violence, dare I say, and or the physicality aspect that leads to injuries and potential long-term issues is an element of the game that's just always existed and supposed to exist. It's part of why we like to watch, like boxing and the UFC, right? Nobody holds a gun to your head and makes you play football. So if you willingly sign up to do it, just because the soccer moms and Will Smith made a movie about concussions, want to scream from the rooftops and cry, and they're going to cry about anything anyways, just because they do that doesn't mean you need to rip out the integrity of the football game. And the integrity of football is physicality. That's what the integrity of the game is. The game was played for years before the forward pass even was a thing, right? It was about lining up and hitting each other and running each other over. The gladiatorial aspect of what kickoff was my entire life and what it's still going to be in college this year is badass. Kiss my ass thinking otherwise. And I remember watching back on that Hall of Fame game the other day, and I thought it was so ironic that they introduced Devin Hester, the greatest kick returner of all time, the greatest returner of all time in the history of the game, as an NFL Hall of Famer, going into the NFL Hall of Famer strictly off how good of a kick returner and punt returner this guy was. He was a sight to behold as a return man in the NFL, and now he's the last one we're ever going to have because they ripped out the rug and changed the kickoff rules because coaches want the game out for health reasons, and in general, PR aspects, Roger Goodell and the NFL caves to the obnoxious minority that don't love football anyways. If you love football, you don't complain about the injuries, the concussions, or the physicality of it. You would do anything for the safety to help the technology rising, the equipment getting better, doctors getting better. You want all that to consistently improve without ripping out the large aspect that we love to watch, which is the physicality, the big hits, the explosive hits. That aspect of the game I love to watch. I loved it as a player. I love playing in it. It is very difficult. Practice is very hard, and it's very dangerous. You are going to get hurt playing football. If you don't want to get hurt, don't want potential of injury, play tennis, play a different sport. All right? But those are my takeaways from week 1 of the preseason. Football's all the way back. The Dallas Cowboys are playing football again. Lombardi number 6, Lombardi number 6, Lombardi number 6. Can't say it enough. I love you guys more than you know. I'm not done yet. Sorry, that was an abrupt ending. 5 minutes on the Olympics. The Olympics just happened. Sorry about that. Oops, been away too long. That's on me. Quickly, U.S. Olympic basketball team won the championship game again, of course. And that was badass. What a badass ending to that. And I'm only going to talk about them and Noah Lyles because, one, this isn't a track and field podcast. The Olympics are awesome. I don't have enough time to get into that. It's a football podcast before anything. But that U.S. Olympic team versus Noah Lyles is such a hilarious thing. I recorded the other day, and I don't even think I'm going to release this aspect of it. I'm just going to release my top 100 players conversation that I had. Either way, I digress on that. But I had talked about Noah Lyles and really taken his side on that and was like, Noah Lyles stood on business with the 100-meter dash, this, that, and the other. And, Devin Booker said that stupid shit that he said, and then Noah Lyles is the fastest man in the world. And I kind of talked about how there's nothing really cooler than being the fastest man in the world other than being like John Jones or some shit. Like being like, yeah, well, that guy... No, I get it. You make a lot of money. This guy's fucking fast, though. Like, as a guy, like, growing up, you settle things with friends either fighting it out or racing for it as a kid. So being the guy that can beat anybody in a straight sprint race, that's just badass as shit, right? So I was like, Noah Lyles wins. I have never seen an athlete go from getting me, I can just speak for myself, on his side so quickly to flipping me back into hating him again as quickly as Noah Lyles did. I mean, there are people on this earth that are cringy and annoying on such a repulsing level that it becomes impossible to root for them, and he is one of them. When he did the 200-meter dash, which is supposed to be his best race, following winning the 100-meter dash and shocking the world doing that, that shit before, and I don't have the footage of it, the shit he did before the race is why he lost. I know that he said he had COVID. I've had COVID about 7 times. We're way beyond the point of being as in elite shape as Noah Lyles is to ever use COVID as an excuse of why you didn't win or lose, right? And I get that it has an impact, and those guys are the fastest in the world. But right before the race, you didn't seem like you had COVID. He was posing for the crowd, doing superhero bullshit, his quirky Noah Lyles stuff, trying to be a half-ass or great value version of what Usain Bolt used to do before races. Well, first and foremost, all you see while he's doing that is the other runners on the track getting fuel from it, getting more pumped up to whoop his ass in that race, right? He's doing all this stupid shit, making it a show about him, not showing that he has COVID or he's sick, and then he loses the race and immediately acts like he's dying from COVID when you know he's fine. And then you fast forward 3 days later, he's partying in a club, singing Pop Smoke, while the U.S. men's national team went and won another gold medal in badass fashion. And Steph Curry's the shit. I don't really care. I'm a known LeBron troll. I don't care. I think he's fine winning the MVP. I mean, he played consistently really, really well. He got fucking dunked on, but he played really well throughout the thing. Steph Curry, though, that was a badass ending to the Olympics, and Steph Curry is one of the greatest players of all time. Putting the game to sleep. Let me pull it up here for you. Just a badass. Not even a good shot. Steph Curry is a badass. And then he does his infamous put you to sleep. That was really cool. The Olympics are really cool, and I'll just close out this show saying that. I love sports. I love all sports. Obviously, I'm a football guy first and foremost, but the Olympics are like every 4 years the coolest thing in the world. You get every sport that is played, from badminton to basketball to track and field to boxing, and you get the very best at what they do, and you put them in one country to compete for it. America, the country that I love, that I'm from, dominates every single time. You can protest us, you can protest our religion, or whatever you want to do, but you can't beat us in sports. And that's what I was proud to watch. And my only comments on anything else that went on with the Olympics is it's sad, because something like this, what I just described, should be more about the athletes that have committed an entire life to training to compete in this moment and win and represent their country than it is anything else. No religion, no politics, no anything should ever take away from that. And France did everything in their power to take away from and make the Olympics about anything but the athletes that were there. And I wish that we lived in a world where people were intelligent enough to understand that there's 7 to 8 billion people here, and you're not going to think the same way as everybody else. Be smart enough to understand that. Look at something, whether you believe in it or not, and you have the right to discuss that, but not take away from the athletes that represent your country and have dedicated their entire life to the discipline that they're doing to represent you in the country and win a medal, right? So that's the only thing I have to say about that. That is sad. I hope that as the time goes on, whether it's from the political perspective or sports or anything, that people can grow the fuck up a little bit and separate sensitive feelings from athletics and what people deserve to be celebrated for. But other than that, it's a beautiful day to be Shonee Jackson. It's a beautiful day to follow the podcast, to subscribe, Spotify, YouTube, the socials. I love you more than you know, not as much as you think. God bless, and goodbye.